everyone. My name is Reverend Venida. My pronouns are she, her, hers. We're grateful to have you today as we talk about higher love in the context of loving yourself. So I am fresh off of the Wilmington, Delaware Black Storytelling residency. And today I have some guests that have joined us, members of my cohort. And the first person that I'd like to introduce is Lauren, who will actually be sharing a story for our children who will go downstairs and discuss what they've just heard. And then I'll tell you a little bit more about the residency, and then I'll bring up the other tellers later on. So first, introducing Lauren Dotson. Lauren goes by she, they pronouns. Lauren is a poet, a storyteller, actor, collagist, and teaching artist, currently based in Chicago, but originally from Ypsi, Michigan. Lauren creates work that concerns itself with Black temporalities, queering the folktale, and using assemblage as a form of world building. Welcome with me, Lauren Dotson.
In the tall, tall branches of the tall, tall trees, in the lush, lush forest, lived Papa Chameleon and Baby Chameleon. And the chameleon's hands look like this. Now, Papa Chameleon was upset. He didn't like the way the other animals thought about chameleons in the forest. He didn't want to be known as being clever or cunning or always wearing disguises. And so, he made a promise to himself to live his life with honesty. And for him, that meant not changing color and staying chameleon green. And every morning and every night, he would tell Baby, "Baby, I'm glad to be green because green, that's the way to be. You and me, we're a green team." Now, as Baby got older, Papa would take him climbing in the forest. And every day, it was always on the same path. And on this path, there were beautiful pink flowers. And there were just ripe yellow bananas. And Baby wanted nothing more than to reach out and touch and turn pink, and to reach out and touch and turn yellow. But anytime he even tried to move a muscle, Papa would turn around, and in a really stern voice this time, he would say, "Baby, I'm glad to be green because green, that's the way to be. You and me, we're a green team." Now for Baby, not being able to change colors wasn't just inconvenient, it was hurting him. Every time he had to resist that urge to turn, his skin got really, really hot, and his eyes got really, really itchy, and his mouth got really, really dry, and his stomach, ooh, it hurt so bad. But he knew he had to obey. And so green, he stayed. There came a time when Baby was no longer a baby, and Papa had since passed on. But every day, Baby would take that same path that Papa showed him. And he didn't dare touch the beautiful pink flowers, and he didn't dare touch the just ripe yellow bananas, because no matter how much it hurt, he knew, man, I'm glad to be green because green is the way to be. You and me, we're a green team. Now one day, while Baby was climbing through the forest, same path as always, he saw an unfamiliar bramble of branches. And so he reached one of his arms out, and one branch led him to another, which led him to another, which led him to another, which led him to the edge of the forest. And when he looked down, he saw some blue water. But when he looked up, he saw the most beautiful sunset he had ever seen. Colors were doing things he didn't know colors could do. I mean, how did the red get to be so wispy? And that orange, it was pulsing. And the magenta was so beautiful, it seemed impossible. And in that moment, all baby wanted to do was turn into those colors. But they were so far away. And he had to stay green. And so baby closed his eyes. And he reached his arm up just to be closer. And he stayed that way for a long while. When baby opened his eyes, the skies were clear. But as he turned to go home, baby noticed something different about his skin. All over his chest was that wispy red, and all up and down his arms was that pulsing orange, and everywhere else, all over his body, was that impossibly beautiful magenta. For the first time in his life, baby felt like himself. For the first time, he felt free. There's an Ashanti proverb that says, when you follow the path of your father, you learn to walk like him. And that may be true. But when you follow the path of who you are, you learn just who you are. Thank you.
So one day, I had the privilege of coordinating a special event at one of the churches that I attended. I decided that I would name this event Love Yourself. Now, I was excited about it because I was taking this from one of the greatest commandments. Last week, as we opened up our Higher Love sermon series, I had the opportunity to preach on love your neighbor. Well, the second part of that relates to today, as yourself. As you love yourself. So let's look at Mark 12, verse 31. You shall love your neighbor as yourself, for there is no other commandment greater than these. Now, I thought I was onto something with this event. And then there were a couple of people that felt like, I don't know if we should really say love yourself. Like, I don't know if we should bill the program as that. There were a number of people who were excited about it, but there were a few who questioned, right? Yes, it's the greatest commandment, but should we actually say it? Which was very odd. So we kept the program the way it was. We had a number of people share their stories of triumph. One of those people who shared is in the room today, Todd's mom, Gloria Jenkins, my mother-in-law. And it was a very, very special event. And as I reflected on our theme for today, I thought about the importance of understanding who we are and embracing the stories of our history, embracing the stories of our ancestors. And I thought that it would be great to really place the emphasis today on storytelling, because there's such a great emphasis placed on love your neighbor, and sometimes we struggle with loving ourselves. So with the weight of violence and inhumane world events weighing heavily upon our central nervous systems, I invite us all to think about storytelling as an art and also as a form of resistance and a way we can actually love ourselves. Jesus was a storyteller. Jesus taught through parables that help people understand principles, and he helped them understand values and truths that went beyond mere instruction. The beautiful part about Jesus' stories is that they made room for people to actually see who they were. It helped them recognize who God was in their lives and to imagine a different world, a world where they could see what else is possible. Today, I invite us to reflect upon the stories that are about to be shared and for us to reflect upon what else is possible in our own lives as we honor our past and as we celebrate who we are with the stories that have formed us. So, as I mentioned earlier, last week or the week before last, I had the opportunity to be a part of, for the second time, the Wilmington, Delaware Black Storytelling Residency. And I was able, it was fantastic. It was led by the storyteller extraordinaire, Tahira from Wilmington, Delaware. And Tahira really, really blessed us. She curated this week of not only enrichment through learning the art of Black storytelling, but she created space for us to do yoga. She created space for us to do African dance. She created space for us to collaborate with each other so that we could open up our creativity and to see what the Spirit was sharing with us. So every night there was homework, and, and we actually wrote a song together that we sang last Saturday night at our presentation. And I want to give honor to those that helped instruct us. Not only did Tahira help us, but she was joined by, as she likes to call it, her dream team, Dr. Carolise Frink-Reed and Emily Hooper-Lanzana. So I want to give honor to them because they help pour into me, and as a result, you get to see the fruit of their labor through some of what we're going to share today. So I'd like to read some bios and then introduce the storytellers to you. You heard from Lauren already, and April Mojica Clement is an early childhood educator, writer, and lifelong storyteller, collecting stories, memories, and probably more Duplo than any grown woman reasonably needs. Let's give it up for April, who'll be coming. And Dr. Yaa will be presenting Reverend Dr. Paulie Murray, the name we should know. And Dr. Yaa is a community and cultural curator based in New York and IT, dedicated to elevating, thank you, they told me how to pronounce it, dedicated to elevating storytelling traditions, fostering cultural exchange, and building community through the arts. As the founder and executive director of a not-for-profit organization operating in Haiti, she cultivates dynamic cultural events, creative programs, and collaborative spaces that honor heritage, empower artists, and connect global audiences to Haitian narratives. So, in this order, Lauren will come, and then April, I forgot to mention April's pronouns, she, her, followed by myself, and then Dr. Yaa, who goes by pronouns they, them. Welcome with me some of my cohort from Wilmington, Delaware's Black Storytelling Residency. April.
Boom, ba 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 boom. It was hot. How hot? Hotter than fish grease it was, and Brer Rabbit was making his way across the White House lawn, looking for the Garden of Plenty. He slipped under the gate and started scanning for what he hoped he'd find, a watermelon patch. Through the peas, through the cabbage, through the McDonald's bags, he found it, a watermelon patch. And he began to scan to find the right one that's big and ripe that he could bust open and reach inside and take the red heart and satisfy his taste for sweet juice. So he's looking for that watermelon when suddenly something catches his eye. And it's red and bright like fresh cut blood. It's the shape of a semicircle with little black seeds. It was a watermelon slice. Oh, he got so excited. It was already there. Hi, diddly-dee, oh, what a slice for me. Hi, diddly-dee, oh, what a slice for me. So he makes his way over and starts to help himself when suddenly he sees something growing out of it. Is it a body? Black baby doll? Oh, this does complicate things, doesn't it? How's he going to get that slice? Now he got to get the slice from the baby doll. Oh, but he remembered his manners. How do, baby? How do, baby? Top of the doll doesn't speak. He ignores the slight. Top of the day, lovely day. You gonna eat that? What you gonna do with that watermelon? Baby doesn't say anything. Too stuck up. Oh, this starts to make Brer Rabbit mad. Ain't got no manners? You know what? I got a mind to... wait a minute. We've been through this before. You're Tar Baby. Tar Baby, we meet again. Oh, I'm not going to fall for it. You know the story of Tar Baby, right? The story of Tar Baby. Tar Baby was made by Brer Fox to catch Brer Rabbit. So he got mad because it didn't have manners, and then he went to hit it with the right hand, it got stuck, left hand got stuck, head, and so on. But Brer Rabbit wasn't going to fall for it this time. No. He understood. He said, okay, I want that melon. So you just stand right there. You don't have to do nothing at all. I'll help myself. I'll come to you, okay? On the count of 3, you just keep holding up that melon. I'm going to come and bite it, and that'll be fine, okay? 1, 2, 3. Did you move? Whew, must be hotter than I thought. Okay, let's try this again. On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. You sure moved. Just ornery. I demand an explanation. I want to know why you're not turning loose that You know, I got a mind that you could speak. Any little Tar Baby that can move like that must be able to speak. Speak to me, Tar Baby. Speak. With that, there was a rumble-dumble. Shaking and a quaking and a shaking and a quaking and a shaking and a quaking and a shaking and a quaking. And suddenly, the little red glazed lips parted, and Tar Baby animated, ooh-wee, ooh-wee, to speak my words free. I was made by white men as a mockery, to make black people feel ugly, to not love the black skin of their babies. This watermelon slice is a pillory, a device to make my head and hands unfree. You don't say? Sure enough, Brer Rabbit knew a thing or two about being trapped. He felt sorry. So he said, hold still, let me see. And piddled around and piddled around. And suddenly that watermelon slice didn't look that good. He tossed it in disgust. And the baby spoke. You know, Brer Rabbit, I've been out here in this patch next to the White House, and I hear the news, and I hear the things that they're saying there, and they can take down the panels about slavery in Philly, and they can defund the Smithsonian in D.C. What they can't do is erase our history, and they can't take away our dignity. Thank you so much for freeing me, Brer Rabbit. You talk too much, Brer Rabbit said. And he turned tail and went on about his business. Boom, ba boom, ba boom, ba boom.
I love track and field, not just as a runner, but as a spectator as well. And if I were to describe life as a track meet, I would channel HBO's Issa Rae, creator of Insecure. Now, maybe some of you remember that during the red carpet event, she was wearing this beautiful red gown, and this was right before the Emmys. And Issa Rae was being interviewed about representation in the media. And the interviewer asked her a very important question. She said, Issa, who are you going to be rooting for tonight? And maybe some of you saw it and remember, so maybe some of you can help me. Issa Rae said, I'm rooting for everybody Black. Wow. She was onto something. And I was like, well, listen, if Issa said that, then I'm rooting for everybody Black. Because if we don't, who will? Now, I'm rooting for everybody Black because something horrific happened at the starting line. We were all lined up, ready to go, and then, as soon as the official's gun went off, everybody took off running, except everybody who was Black. We had to stand behind the starting line. The official said, do not move. We were rendered immobile. So we were just standing there trying to figure out what was going on. And then, when we were finally free to start running, oh, we were doing great. We were making great strides, great progress. And then, folks started getting angry. And then they started throwing these big, gigantic hurdles onto the track. They weren't even regulation hurdles. I'm talking, these hurdles were ginormous. They were big. We could not even get over them individually. We needed the help of our family and friends to get over these hurdles. Listen, y'all, I'm rooting for everybody Black. Because if we don't, who will? Listen, I'm rooting for everybody Black from the playground to the Price is Right. I am rooting for those passing the baton of Fannie Lou Hamer, ensuring that we all make it to the polls equitably. I'm rooting for Brooklyn's own Shirley Chisholm, who is passing the baton to those running for office to ensure our communities are safe, our water is clean, and our schools are properly resourced, and that our history is not erased. I'm rooting for everybody Black, because if we don't, who will? I'm rooting for young people, like my nephew Shane, to help him understand why we say Black Lives Matter, and to help other young people understand why we say Black Lives Matter. And I'm rooting for those who are Black and queer and Christian, those who are standing, those who are living out their truth with all of their identities, with so much joy and with so much love. And I'm rooting for storytellers everywhere who continue to share our stories in various mediums. I'm rooting for everybody Black, because if we don't, who will? And the beautiful thing about this race that I envision is that it won't be first, second, and third place medals. There won't be that. We'll all be able to come across the finish line together, young and old, collectively in community. We'll be coming across the finish line together, and we will be rooted on by a great cloud of witnesses. And those witnesses will be our ancestors who were there all the time, cheering for us, rooting for us throughout our entire race. I'm rooting for everybody Black. Help me out, y'all, because if we don't, who will? Thank you.
I want to talk about sidewalk chalk. It was May 2024, and I was a senior in college. And all throughout the country, all throughout the world, student organizers were taking to their campuses and occupying public spaces in order to protest the genocide in Gaza. We were staying, encamping, occupying, and not leaving until our demands were met, many of which, across different campuses, were demanding that the universities were divesting their money, that were actively funding programs, organizations, corporations that were funding the genocide. I could tell you what it was like to see our protests end in tear gas and pepper spray. I could tell you what it was like to watch my friends get arrested one by one. I could tell you what it was like to negotiate with a university that wanted to debate the value of a life. And those may be my stories, but they are not mine alone. And I want to talk about sidewalk chalk. You see, these encampments weren't just a random assortment of tents in the middle of a place. It became a community. It became a resource center. We had a medical tent that was fully stocked and staffed with street medics, people that worked at the hospitals, medical students. We had a food table where restaurants and families from the neighborhood who wanted to support would donate food to us, and we would redistribute it right on back. We had a political education station where folks could learn about the history, the scholarship, the theory, the why of what we were doing. And we had an art tent, and that's where I was. And at the art tent, we had people's Palestinian grandmothers teaching us how to do cross-stitch, which they called tatriz. We were making posters for protests, and we were chalking the quad. Now, I want to talk about sidewalk chalk because when we were chalking the quad, we were stating our demands. On all corners, we had in big letters, Free Palestine, so that people could not go their day without seeing it. With the chalk, we were able to make statements of solidarity. Viva, viva Palestina, Black revolution for Palestinian liberation. And day after day, as the death tolls rose, we were able to write down the names of the martyrs so that they would not be forgotten. And even though sidewalk chalk might feel like a simple gesture, it's also an accessible one. People would stop their days to join us, offering to teach us how to write freedom in Arabic, sometimes offering a drawing of a flower, sometimes offering a drawing of an olive branch. And as we were on all fours, grinding the same pigment into the earth, people started offering their stories. Stories of anger and pain. Stories of a Palestine they were afraid they were never going to be able to return to. Stories of how they found they had a cousin one day, the same day that they learned they passed. I want to talk about sidewalk chalk because it was the in-between. It became the in-between to the actions in the protests, the in-between to the news cycles and the death and the death and the death. It became the in-between, the breathing space, a place where we could be quiet, carve our truth into the earth, spell our prayers into the land. I want to talk about sidewalk chalk because it was beautiful. It was a moment of reflection in such chaos. In those pockets, that breathing space. This too is revolutionary. Thank you.
I want to tell you a story about someone I wished I met sooner. Their name is Reverend Dr. Pauli Murray. Pauli Murray's name ought to be on everyone's lips in this here America, in this here 21st century. When I started reading Maury Pauli, I was blown away. I was reading and saying, wait, she did that too? Activist, lawyer, scholar,
poet, priest. The more I read, the more I wanted to know why I wasn't taught this. How is this non-binary, black feminist, living at the intersection of gender, race, sexuality, and faith, who helped shape the history of America at its core, constitutionally I'm speaking. And most of us outside the scholarly circle was never taught their name. Why? Molly Purry was born in 1910 in the segregated South during the Jim Crow era. As a child, she refused to accept the word no. And this here America had plenty of no for her. Okay? But she had a way of answering, why not? When the segregation tried to determine where Polly could sit, because Polly is black, Polly challenged that. When institution tried to determine where Polly could study, Polly challenged them. When sexism tried to determine what Polly could be, she challenged that too. No became why not. And this pattern followed her throughout her life. In 1940, Polly and a friend were riding a bus through Virginia. The back seats were broken, so they sat farther up. The bus driver ordered them to move. They refused. The police came. Polly and her friend were arrested. They went to jail. And that was 15 years before Rosa Parks. When the 3 NAACP lawyers arrived on the scene that evening, they saw her notes, how she documented it, the who, the why, the how, even the drawing of the seating. They looked and said, this looked like a legal brief. 2 years later, Polly was accepted at Howard University Law School. And she was determined to destroy Jim Crow. Now imagine, Polly walks into her classroom, and she is the only woman in the class. And one of her professors questioned why a woman would want to study law. Polly gave him an answer. She graduated top of her class. Yes. At Howard, Polly experienced racism and sexism, but she had a name for it. She called it the opposite of Jim Crow, Jane Crow. At Howard, Polly developed bold legal ideas that would challenge segregation and later was used to influence the fight on women's rights. While I was in Wilmington, I learned that Louis L. Redding was fighting the same battle in court, challenging school segregation in the Delaware case that became part of Brown versus Board of Education. Now I want to leave you with this. Polly challenged segregated bus seating 15 years before Rosa Parks. Polly developed legal thinking that became the groundwork to fight the battle that became Brown versus Board of Education. Polly Murray, at 66, became the first black woman ordained an Episcopal priest. So now, do you understand why I couldn't just say, oh, she's an amazing woman? I had to ask, why did I not know? Why is it that Polly Murray's name is not on everyone's lips in this here America, in this here 21st century? So now that I know, what do I do with what I know? I went back, I found Polly, and now I bring her name forward. A person who heard no, but kept saying, why not? Please say her name with me. Polly Murray. Say her name with me. Remember her name. Mary. Carry her story. Then draw the circle wider with higher love.